I remember the day I met Jessica like it was yesterday. She was beautiful, with long brown hair and piercing eyes that seemed to see right through me. We ran into each other on a crowded street corner, books and newspapers strewn everywhere. As I helped her clean up, time seemed to stop. I remember her fingers lightly touching mine as we picked up the scattered books, and a small spark ignited something deep inside me. The busy street seemed to recede into the background, leaving the two of us alone in that fleeting moment. "Sorry," I mumbled, holding out my notebook to her. "Ethan," she smiled, her full lips curving upward. "Jessica." "Nice to meet you." "Ethan," her voice was warm, and I immediately felt a connection, as if we'd known each other for years rather than seconds. That chance meeting turned into daily meetings, long walks in the park, and endless conversations. We talked about everything: our hopes, our dreams, our fears. We shared stories of our childhoods, laughed over silly anecdotes, and comforted each other in times of sadness. I found myself looking forward to every moment with her. Jessica made me feel like a real man. She gave me a sense of purpose and made me feel like I was capable of anything. I realized I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. A year later, I got down on one knee and asked her to be my wife. Tears of joy streamed down her face. She said yes, her voice trailing off as she smiled through her tears. It was the happiest moment of my life. Our wedding was like a fairy tale: the castle, the floating candles, the fun music. Everything was perfect, like we were living in a dream. As I watched Jessica walk down the aisle in her lace dress, I thought my heart might burst with love. She was mine now, and I would cherish her forever. I remember how her eyes met mine, how she smiled at me, how step by step she drew closer until we were finally together, ready to take on the world. I remember the way the guests cheered, how my mother cried tears of joy, and how I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for having Jessica in my life. But after the long-awaited happiness came the hard days, the routine of everyday family life. Jessica worked hard as an attorney, leaving before I woke up and returning when I was already asleep. I went to work determined to accomplish something and provide for her. I wanted to make her proud of me, to make sure I was the man she deserved. But the more we tried to make our busy lives work, the more we drifted apart. The intimacy we once shared became distant memories, replaced by long hours at the office and exhausted evenings. When our paths crossed, the conversation seemed strained, as if we were speaking different languages. Jessica was drifting away from me. I tried to reach out to her, to bring back what we once had, but she spoke as if everything was fine, as if nothing had happened. Her smile was still there, but it no longer came into her eyes. I could feel the distance growing, like an invisible wall between us that I couldn't break through. Maybe that was just the way it was. Maybe the problem was me. I told myself I was working too much and not spending enough time with her. I thought that if I just tried a little harder, things would go back to the way they were. I started planning little surprises: a bouquet of her favorite flowers, a weekend getaway, cooking her favorite meal. I tried everything I could think of to rekindle the spark that once defined us, but nothing seemed to work. So one day I came home early. I slung my laptop bag over my shoulder, hoping to surprise Jessica. I imagined her smile, the joy in her eyes when she saw me. She didn't go to work that day. I opened the door, my heart pounding with excitement, but found her in bed with another man, a co-worker from her law firm. I could see the shock on her face, but what hurt me most was the emptiness in her eyes. There was no remorse, no explanation, just a hollow gaze that tore me apart. I turned around and walked out. Every step was like wading through loose sand. I drove for an hour, tears flooding my eyes, until I parked in front of my parents' house. My mom hugged me tightly and held me close as I crashed. My dad sat quietly beside me, silently supporting me. They were my refuge, and for the first time in my life I allowed myself to be vulnerable. I cried for hours, letting out the pain, the betrayal, and the heartbreak. My parents were patient, comforting me without words, just their presence. My mom whispered words of encouragement, telling me I was strong, that I would get through this. My dad simply held my shoulder, a steady presence that made me feel safe. My family was my support and my salvation. They gave me the strength to file for divorce, but Jessica's betrayal would always be a constant ache in my chest. I knew healing this wound would take a long time. I leaned on my parents, siblings, and even old friends I hadn't seen in years. Slowly, I began to put the pieces of my life back together. I focused on myself, on healing, on finding joy in the little things. I started jogging in the mornings, enjoying the crisp air and the sense of freedom it gave me. I picked up hobbies I had long forgotten: painting, playing guitar, reading books that had been gathering dust on my shelf. A few months later, I found love again with a sweet girl named Amanda. She was different from Jessica in every way: warm, open, and always smiling. She never stopped laughing at my jokes, no matter how silly they were. She made me feel alive again. Amanda and I took things slow. We spent our weekends exploring new places, hiking trails, and trying out new foods. She brought a lightness to my life that I hadn't realized I needed. She taught me how to laugh again, how to let go of the past and embrace the present. On our wedding day, I didn't hate Jessica, I thanked her. For if she hadn't broken my heart, I never would have found Amanda. As I watched Amanda walk towards me, her eyes full of love and excitement, I realized I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Life has brought me through pain and heartache, but it has also brought me to this moment, a moment of true happiness surrounded by people who genuinely care about me. And for that, I will always be grateful. Amanda and I built a life together that was full of love and understanding. We promised to always communicate, to never let the distance grow between us. We traveled together, made new memories, and supported each other's dreams. Amanda encouraged me to pursue my passions, and I did the same for her. We faced challenges, but we faced them together, hand in hand. Every day felt like a new beginning, a chance to love each other more deeply. I learned that love wasn't about grand gestures or fairy tale weddings. It was about being there for each other, in the small moments, in the laughter, and even in the tears. As I look back now, I realize that every step of my journey, the joy, the pain, the heartbreak, had led me to where I am today. Life isn't perfect, but it's beautiful in its imperfections. Amanda and I continue to grow together, and every day I am reminded of how lucky I am. I have found a partner who truly loves me for who I am, flaws and all. And that, more than anything, is what makes life worth living.